There have been fast linebackers. There have been strong ones. And then there was Luke Kuechly, a guy who could see the future before the ball even left the quarterback's hands. While the NFL has no shortage of athletic monsters, Kuechly built his dominance on something rarer: raw intelligence. He didn't just play the game. He decoded it in real time. From the moment Kuechly stepped onto an NFL field, coaches, teammates, and even opponents realized something was different. It wasn't just the stats, although those were ridiculous. It was the way he made even the most complex offenses look like they were running in slow motion. Quarterbacks would call an audible, and he'd already be shifting his defense to blow it up. Receivers would try to disguise their routes, and he'd already be in the passing lane. At times, it didn't feel fair, like someone handed a defensive coordinator a helmet and told him to go play middle linebacker. But none of this was an accident. Kuechly's football brain was in overdrive long before he reached the NFL. Back in high school, he wasn't the biggest guy on the field. He wasn't the fastest either. But coaches quickly noticed he knew where every play was going before the snap. At St. Xavier in Cincinnati, his football IQ stood out more than his build. He didn't rely on instincts alone. He studied film like a veteran, understood offensive tendencies, and could explain what every position on the field was supposed to do. While other teenagers were reacting, Kuechly was processing. His high school coaches would later tell stories about how he'd correct their play calls during timeouts, not out of disrespect, but because he'd spotted something they'd missed. During film sessions, he'd point out blocking schemes and route combinations that even varsity coaches hadn't noticed. It was like having a graduate assistant disguised as a teenager. Still, not everyone was convinced. When college recruiters looked at him, they saw a smart linebacker who weighed just 200 pounds. Not exactly what you'd expect from a future Defensive Player of the Year. He was a 3-star recruit ranked as the 44th best outside linebacker in his class. Some schools wanted him to play safety. Others suggested he might be better suited for Division II football. But Boston College saw the bigger picture. He wasn't just a grinder. He was a technician, a strategist. And the moment he got to campus, he proved it. At Boston College, Kuechly wasted no time making an impact. He started as a freshman, calling defensive signals. He immediately stood out for his ability to read plays and adjust mid-snap. Every week, he out-prepared the competition. While others were lifting weights or partying, he was breaking down hours of tape spotting formations, memorizing backfield movements, and studying tendencies. He didn't just learn how to play defense. He learned how to dismantle an offense at its core. His college teammates remember him differently from most star players. There were no ego trips or prima donna moments. Instead, they'd find him in the film room at midnight, rewinding the same play over and over until he understood every nuance. He'd show up to practice with detailed notes about upcoming opponents, not just their star players, but their third-string running backs and backup tight ends. He knew everyone's tendencies. That film room obsession paid off fast. He racked up more than 500 tackles in just 3 college seasons, including a jaw-dropping 191 tackles in a single year. By the time he declared for the NFL draft, scouts couldn't ignore him anymore. Some still doubted his size, but nobody questioned his mind. The Carolina Panthers took him with the 9th overall pick in 2012, and from day one, he approached the NFL like a chess match. In his rookie season, he wasn't even playing middle linebacker to start. But when veteran John Beeson went down, Kuechly stepped in and never looked back. He led the league in tackles that year and won Defensive Rookie of the Year. What separated him wasn't just effort or athleticism. It was how quickly he processed information and reacted before anyone else on the field. Veterans on the team were stunned by how fast he picked up the playbook. What usually took rookies months to understand, he mastered in weeks. Defensive coordinator Sean McDermott would install new packages on Wednesday, and by Friday, Kuechly was teaching them to other players. It was like he'd been running the system for years. By year 2, he wasn't just reacting, he was running the show. Quarterbacks would try to disguise plays with motions and dummy counts. Kuechly saw right through them. Sometimes he'd start yelling out the offense's next move before the ball was even snapped, pointing, shifting, alerting his teammates. Opposing players said it felt like he was in their huddle. Some even joked he knew their playbook better than they did. In 2013, Kuechly earned the Defensive Player of the Year, the youngest in nearly a decade, and anchored a Carolina defense that ranked among the best in the league. And in 2015, the Panthers exploded. With Cam Newton leading the offense and Kuechly commanding the defense, they went 15-1 and steamrolled into the Super Bowl. That season showed Kuechly at his absolute peak. He wasn't just diagnosing plays, he was punishing offenses for even thinking about trying him. In the playoffs, he intercepted passes in back-to-back games, returning both for touchdowns. One came against the Seahawks, where he jumped a route and sprinted into the end zone untouched. The next week, he did it again in the NFC Championship. Different quarterback, same result. He was a one-man film study turned into destruction. Even in the Super Bowl, a game Carolina ultimately lost, Kuechly was everywhere. He led all players in tackles and sacked Peyton Manning. And yet, it wasn't the tackles or sacks that defined him. It was the complete control he had over the field. Every snap, he was directing traffic, adjusting coverage, and reading formations. It was like having a head coach standing behind the line of scrimmage in shoulder pads. But all of that came at a price. The same instincts that made Kuechly great, flying toward the ball, launching into contact, never backing down, also made him vulnerable. In 2015, he suffered his first concussion. In 2016, a brutal hit against the Saints left him visibly shaken. He was carted off the field in tears, and for many fans, that moment was a wake-up call. Behind the toughness and brilliance was a man risking his long-term health every time he stepped onto the field. The sight of Kuechly crying on that stretcher became one of the most haunting images in recent NFL history. Here was the toughest, smartest player on the field reduced to tears not from pain, but from the terrifying realization of what was happening to his brain. It was a moment that crystallized the brutal reality of football's toll on even its most cerebral players. Still, he fought back. He missed time but returned just as sharp. From 2017 to 2019, he played nearly every game and remained one of the league's top linebackers. He wasn't just hanging on, he was still dominating. But inside, he knew the risks were mounting. After multiple concussions and another round of surgery, Kuechly made the hardest decision of his life. In January 2020, at just 28 years old, he retired. He wasn't limping out of the league. He wasn't a shell of himself. He walked away on his own terms, still elite, still capable, but unwilling to compromise his brain, body, or future. That decision shocked the NFL. Fans were heartbroken. Analysts were stunned. But for Kuechly, it was the right call. He'd given everything, and he wasn't about to let the game take more than he could afford to give. The retirement press conference was vintage Kuechly. Thoughtful, measured, and brutally honest. He didn't sugarcoat the risks or pretend football was just a game. He acknowledged what everyone knew but rarely said out loud. That intelligence meant nothing if you didn't have the wisdom to protect it. After retirement, he didn't disappear. He tried scouting for the Panthers, applying his knowledge to talent evaluation. It wasn't the right fit. Eventually, he found his way into coaching and broadcasting. Whether helping kids on the sidelines or breaking down NFL games on the radio, his voice carried the same weight it always had. Precision, insight, mastery. And in every football circle, one thing remained consistent. Nobody questioned his mind.